I look like the kind of guy with a plan. I'm an agent of chaos. Stephen King wrote in his book called, geez, I don't even know what it was, on writing? I think that was Barbara Whalen that wrote the book about writing that was called On Writing. Stephen King had one. He had memoirs, and he had a second part of it with tools, things to use. You gotta have your toolbox, you know, that story he has of his uncle with a crew cut grabbed the big old toolbox that his grandpa, that Stevie's grandpa had built himself. And it's got all this stuff. It's got huge things. He picked it up and he walked around. They were just going to fix the back screen door on Stevie's mom's house. And he carried this big thing out there and he sets it down. And he looks at the door and he reaches in to the toolbox and he pulls out a screwdriver. And he fixes the screw that was loose, puts it back in, carries back around that big, giant, beautiful toolbox and puts it back in the garage, wherever he put it. Not necessary to even fucking ask question. But Steve, he looked at him and he says, "Ooh, Uncle Worley or something, why did you carry that whole toolbox back there just for the screwdriver?" And his uncle looked at him, he said, "Well, Steve," he says, "you never know what you're going to run into. You have to take all your tools with you." And he makes a connection with writing on that and things like that. One of the things he talks about in there, he talks about reading bad books. He says that you want to read bad books as much as it might be a chore, but if you want to write, you should be reading bad books. It teaches you what not to do. The things that you might think are a good idea, once you see somebody else do it and it doesn't work, you're like, well, I guess that wasn't going to work. And you can learn from that. I've only read one book in my entire life that I didn't learn anything from at all. It was a waste of time, if you look at it that way. But the reason I got the book itself made it all worthwhile. It's all very valuable to me. You've heard me say, we could make a better country out of this. Why haven't I? Because I don't have a fucking plan. Not one that's any better for us than what's going on right now. You have to be able to understand, making something better doesn't always mean tearing it apart, but if you're going to be able to make something better out of that, maybe the only way is to allow itself to be torn apart. It doesn't take somebody coming in that's going to tear it apart and put something else in there without any kind of fucking plan at all. There are plans, there are rules, and it's chaos. I say I'm not going to fuck anything up. I'm not even trying to do anything myself. I'm just thinking, how could it be better? And that's what it takes as citizens of this sovereign state, within its own boundaries, under its own rules, to be able to share what could be a better idea instead of trying to force what they want. Chaos, something that comes apart. Chaos is the thing. It doesn't get better randomly. Chaos, it reaches into the parts of what's been taken apart, the way I understand it, looking for its constituent parts. What is the definition of analyze? To break something down to its constituent parts and study them. Analyze. Chaos sees something that's come apart, and it takes the best parts in some way, maybe even some of the worst parts, but puts them together in another way. There's a matrix of it, and something better comes of it. I'm very patient. How do you think I got this old? Patience. Takes time. Nothing to stress over. Anybody who ever says I lost my patience, they have pushed me to the limits of it. Only those people know the limits of my patience. And they don't understand that they were the cause, and they're the only one that saw them. Other people don't see the limits of patience. My patience go very, very, very far. I see far. No hurry. Even without us, this thing will work itself out. And you want to talk about reading a bad book before you write that same bad book? Patience is certainly an element of reading. Let's read the bad book before we write an awful story. This stuff right now with that poor guy still actively trying to take the country, he's not talking about a revolution. He's talking about just taking it. He doesn't have a fucking plan, and he's not an agent of chaos. He's one of the Joker's men. He's just some nut that the Joker can fucking influence and push down a path and tell him, it's gonna be okay. You just do that. Oh my, he told me the pain would go away. Is that a phone? Boom! It's blowing up right in front of everybody. This patience of mine has shown me another way not to try to find a better way. This guy is doing everything wrong. It's not working. It's not working for him. It's not working for anybody else. And maybe that's it. Maybe this is the self-imploding chaos we're talking about. It's not the chaos that's trying to save the country just in the face of the country. It's chaos tearing apart that poor guy and his ideas and his beliefs. This poor guy, he's the quintessence of what chaos needs to go further. He's coming apart right in front of us all. This is like looking at an individual, like watching the Truman Show. This guy thinks he knows what's going on, and he's just coming apart. And through his collapse, chaos may connect with everything else, from the individual to the whole. As above, so below. You know. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. One out of many, many out of one. That which destroys itself makes